All right, here we have the set between Pillowcase, aka Suki Suki, and the legendary Philhassey. The developer himself has agreed to a set. How amazing is that? Well, let's jump right into the games. So for the first match, I would likely go for the 26, 8, 9, then the size 3. I think that the 21 is fairly safe. However, if you take the 21, you are at risk of your opponent taking the 16. And the 16 is not very easy to attack, as you have that massive choke point between the 32 and 49 there. However, if I was Pillowcase, I would definitely take the 26, 8, and 9. Perhaps the 21 if you don't just go for the opponent's home instantly. But yeah, let's see what happens. Pillow expands the side 3 first and opts to go for just the 16. Very interesting. Phil opts to go for the classic expansion path, as I suggested earlier. But he goes for the Philhassey goes for the 8. He takes the 21 and the 9. I think that's a bit much, honestly. He could have gotten away with just skipping the 21 entirely, and that way he would have already outprodded Pillowcase. But as it stands, he overexpanded the 21, which allowed Pillowcase to take the 16 and immediately punish him for overexpanding there. Had he not taken the 21, he could have just tunneled from his home to the 8 and then immediately from the 8 into the 9 and gone for Pillowcase's exposed 3 that he just took. But since he went for the 21 instead of the 9 immediately, then yeah, he wasted out on valuable time and ships. Good one by Pillowcase, though. Not the expansion path I would have expected from him, but it worked out all the same. He managed to punish Philhassey's overexpand and get the job done. All right, going into game 2. Nice comment by Philhassey there, saying that this set is going to be real dark for him. He's probably not played a single game of Galcon in months. Now that you think about it. But whatever. Going into game 2, obviously take the giant 3 that's right next to your home. After that, the only planets I really see are feasible are the 17 and 19 here. For Pillow, it's the left side, 17 and 19, and for Phil, it's the right-hand side. However, they're fairly out of the way. I would say go for the 17 first if you can manage to survive the initial attack here. I would probably go into the 3 and then immediately go into the attack after just taking the 3. Only after I have gained a significant lead on my opponent would I think about going into the 17. Let's see what happens. Yeah, both players take the 3. Philhassey sends all into the wrong side 17. He heard me just now say that the 17 was a good idea, but he went for the wrong side, the 17 on the wrong side. He went for Pillow 17. I guess he thought that he could somehow defend it. Here he's going for a swap, which now that I think about it, kind of makes sense. He took the 17 in preparations so that he could take Pillow's home in an all-out swap. And now, once he has completed the swap, he now has an extra 17 on his side, which would have been Pillow's 17 earlier. But now it's Phil's 17. I can see why Phil decided to go for this tactic, but I don't think it's going to work. Is that not only by doing this did he lose 17 ships, but he also gave up his home very early. And so since Pillow now has 4 planets compared to Phil's 1, he's going to have an extra 25, 30 ships. And that 17 is not going to produce enough in time to compensate for this fact. I predict that Pillow should be able to recapture that 17 very easily here. Yeah, Phil is trying to go for the swap, Pillow's defending the home cluster. Phil does manage to complete the swap. Good for him. Pillow, instead of rushing the 17, he does take the 17 and then decides to gloat by taking his own 17 as well, leaving Philhassey with only the home cluster. And yeah, it's just over. I can appreciate the thought process that went into Phil's mind just now, but it wouldn't have worked in practice. Okay, going into game number 3. Here there are a lot of good options here. Definitely the 5 planets there, the 8, the 13, the 15, and the 1 to start off with, followed by probably the middle 19 here. Every other planet is probably just too expensive. By taking the middle 19 before your opponent, you establish dominance over the middle of the map. And once you take your 19, it becomes almost impossible for them to take their 19 without establishing a significant lead by floating first. So yeah, definitely 13, 15, 1, and 8, followed by the 19. If the opponent decides to skip one of the sides there, say they only take the 13 and the 8, or the 15 and the 1, and they immediately go into the 19 to compensate for that, and only later take the other side, then in that case, taking the 19 becomes optional for the player that expanded both sides, and only after some floating would they be able to take the 19 on their side. But yeah, let's see what happens. Both players go for the 5 planets. Pillow captures first, and he takes an extra 44, while Phil immediately goes into the middle 19. The 19 is smaller than the 44, though, so unless Phil takes the second 19, he's going to be... Taking the second 19... So... Yes, taking the second 19 is a good strategy when taking at face value. Both 19s only cost 38 ships, and they outproduce the 44. However, if we rewind the game to right here, Phil takes the second 19 while Pillow's ships haven't even landed yet. They're still flying over the midpoint of his cluster. Therefore, when Phil takes the second 19, Pillow can immediately redirect all of his ships and converge on those two 19s in there. You see that Phil has not reinforced his middle planets whatsoever. He just takes the 19 without a second thought. And so, as a result, Pillow takes both 19s and holds them for the rest of the match. Yeah, this is a very, very rudimentary error made by Philhassey. You see this a lot with newer players who don't know how to defend. They don't take into account where their opponent's ships are and the fact that they can be redirected to closer planets fairly quickly. So because Phil had expanded that second 19 not only in front of Pillow's face, he did it without reinforcing and with a billion ships surrounding his planet. This game is just over right now. Pillow has the entire cluster, the extra 44, and both 19s. Phil should just surrender. You see Pillow gloating, fanning out his attacks, trying to capture everything. I'm sorry, Pillow. Phil he throws in the towel right there. Good win by Pillow, though. It's now 3-0. A quick lead has been established. All right, game 4. So here I would probably go into, if I was Philhassey here, I would go into the top 8, followed by the 13, 8, 2, 11, and 1. Just very, very quickly tunnel through all of those planets as fast as you possibly can. At that point, I would attack from both the Giant 2 and the 1. The 2 into the main cluster and the 1 into the home. Meaning, if I was sending ships from the 1, I would only be attacking the home from that position. Other than that, these are very, very cheap planets to start off with. And so I'd expect a lot of aggression here from both sides, and hopefully a lot of captures. Let's see what happens. Pillow opts to go for the side 1 first instead of opting to tunnel. He takes both 8s, and it looks like Philhassey is just very, very slow on this expansion here. He doesn't opt for any sort of tunneling whatsoever. He just fans out. He just sends different percentages to his planets and then doesn't seem to reinforce them or tunnel through them, which can be a bit problematic. As you see here, Pillow now has 6 planets to Philhassey's 3, and none of Pillow's planets are looking to fall anytime soon. And you see here, Phil is taking an extra 6, but he's taking that super, super late, and it's right next to a planet that Pillow owns. So I think that this game is over within the first 10 seconds. Yeah, Phil decides to go for just too many planets that are far away at the start. He should have just stuck with that 8 right there and tunneled into the mid. Doing that would have enabled him to counter Pillow's 2-sided expansion a lot better than trying to 2-side expand himself. But as it stands, Pillow gets his 4th win there, almost making it through halfway of the set already. Now Phil is trying to justify his losses by saying he's old and slow. Personally, I think that this is just an excuse. I've seen a couple of old people play this game that they're in their, I wouldn't say old, like middle-aged, and even they have better expansion reasoning than what is being showcased right here. This is just a case of not being practiced or knowing any opening theory of the game. But, I mean, all things considered, he is at least trying to expand, tunnel, and attack. He's just not doing it to the same level of competency as Pillowcase is. Anyways, enough rambling. Time to get on with the set. Going into Game 5 here, I would go into the I would go into the 17 to the 0, the 25, the 4, and the 18. I would go into most, if not all of these straight away, as it is pretty hard to rush ships through that middle cluster right there. If you were to try to attack, I would probably go just the 17, 2, and 0, 17, 4, 2, and 0, and just attack straight away. But taking the 25 does seem like something you can get away with, as well as the 18. Maybe not both of them at once, but either the 25 or 18. Preferably the 25 first, as it is closer to the home. But let's see if either of these players go for the 25 or 18 right away. Pillow goes crazy. He's taking everything. Phil is very, very slow on this expansion. He doesn't take the 4. He sends so many ships to that side 0 for some reason. He sent like a good 50, 60 ships to that side 0, which I personally don't get. Maybe he was trying to attack from that, as it gave him a useful outside angle, and he didn't expect Pillow to be that aggressive, but still, he sent 60 ships to a 0. You can't be doing that. I don't even know. Philhassey is saying Pillow spawned with 5 planets. That's funny. In Phil's defense, he did take 3 planets of his own fairly quickly. It's just that Pillow has a lot more Elim experience. You play against Pillowcase any day, and this type of stuff is normal for him to be doing. It's normal for the majority of Elim players to be doing, actually. But yeah, All right, 5-0. Pillow has a massive lead over Philhassey. Can Phil come back in this brutal, close, tense set? Here we go. Game number 6 here. Now, the two players here are spawned relatively far apart. Therefore, taking the 29 is very, very safe here. It's pretty much almost impossible to punish that. After that, after taking the 29, I would probably go into the 28. It all depends on what your opponent does here, honestly. If your opponent goes for the 28, you go for the 41. If your opponent goes for the 41 straight away, then it might be possible just to rush it, and hopefully you manage to punish that huge initial cost of the 41. I think it's risky going for the 29, the 28, having your opponent match that, and then taking the 41 straight away on the third planet as your third planet, simply because that 41 is very, very expensive. Let's see if either player thinks they can pull taking the 41 off. They go for the 29, the 28. Yeah, rather than going for the 41, Pillowcase goes for the 39, which I can respect, as the 39 is much more out of the way than the 41. However, Philhassey takes the 38, which is much smaller than the 39, and then sends all his ships in attack towards Pillowcase, pretty much 100%, allowing Pillowcase to get a bunch of cheap caps off. And yeah, Phil just left his entire cluster undefended right there. He needs to learn that you shouldn't send everything out for an attack when your opponent also can do the same thing. He should attack with lower percentages, like 50%, 30% of his total amount of ships. Okay, going into game number 7 here. Coincidentally, the 7 is the best planet to take at the start. After that, probably the 23 and maybe the side 7. However, the side 7 is going to be very, very hard to defend if you have the 7 and the 23 on your side, simply because the view from the opponent's home to that small 7 is much more unrestricted than from your big 7 to your little 7. However, I do see both players taking that small 7 if they are able to, simply because it's fairly cheap and it's decently sized here. And a third reason is that it allows ships to easily travel from that small 7 to your opponent's home. You can see Pillow already sending some ships out to that giant 7 there. Pillow has been the main aggressor here in this set. He's getting ships out faster, he's getting ships out earlier, he's getting his expansion out earlier, and just overall being more solid. All right, can Phil change it around? Phil tries to anticipate that Phil is going to go for his side, and so he sends a fleet out early, but now that he sees that Phil is not buying it, Phil is just changing his strategy, opting to rush Pillow immediately. Pillow redirects his ships back to his home, and it doesn't work out for him. Pillow had only taken the 7, just the 7. And so I don't know why Phil thought that taking the 7 was punishable. It's not punishable. That 7 is a good 90-ish prod, 85, 90-ish prod I had to estimate. When you're flying your ships that far across the map, being able to punish your opponent for taking a planet like that is just not going to work out for you. Honestly, Pillow could have gotten away with taking the 23 as well, and he still probably wouldn't be able to punish that. Additionally, Philhassey did not send 100% of his ships out towards Pillowcase. You can see here that Pillow still has around 50 ships left, around half. This leads me to believe that Philhassey only sent 50% out at the start, and then did not send anything else. Those 50 extra ships are just sitting in Phil's home right now, not doing a single thing. My takeaway for Phil for this match would be to use all your ships effectively. They should be doing something, not sitting in your home. They should be out expanding more planets, attacking the enemy, or potentially defending a potential attack there. But not just sitting in your home, doing nothing, and enjoying life, just chilling out. At this point, Pillow has an extra planet, is producing a lot of extra ships for him, and he probably has around a good 20-ish ships advantage. So this should turn out to be a very, very easy win for Pillowcase. Yeah, Pillow notices that he still has 50 ships left, and is like, bro, this is new to me. I'm not used to having so many ships left in my defense. Now, Phil tries to go for the home, but Pillow defends it. It was close, but close doesn't get you to win here. And in doing so, he sacrifices his entire cluster. He did try to match Pillow's expansion there, but it was late. And by the time he did do so, it's just over. Let's call that one a tie, he says. That's funny. It was a tie for about 3-ish seconds, maybe 4. The other 99% of the match was clearly in Pillow's favor there. 7-0. Pillowcase over Philhassey. Game number 8 here. Take the 7 immediately. Then probably the 26 here. If you take the 26, your opponent can't really punish that in any way. They would have to go for the 43 or 44, which if they do that, then they're just asking to get brutally attacked right there. Those planets are way out in the open, and I just don't see them being defendable whatsoever if you take the 26. Let's see what happens with Phil's side. Pillow has already expanded the 7. Pillow takes the 26, yep, as expected, and just immediately goes for the rush. However, he sees that Phil doesn't take the 26 and is just choosing to attack everything again. But it seems as if Phil didn't send out 100%. He probably only sent out like 85% if I had to guess. Didn't he learn he should have learned his lesson from the last game about not sending attacks at 100%, and that would cost you in these rushes. Yeah, you see he has so many ships left over to take that 26, and he takes an extra 21. He had 50 ships right there that he could have used in that rush. But instead he tries to get an expansion lead over Pillow, but Pillow has already sent ships to attack Philhassey when he decides that. So yeah, I don't see any of that working out for Philhassey. All right, in this next game here, I would say definitely the 3, 5, and 7. Those are the obvious ones. The 6 is another good choice. The 37 is a bit ambiguous, though. On one hand, it is right next to the home. It's far away from the opponent, and it is a good centralizer, meaning that if you have the 37, it's going to be so much easier to expand into all the other planets in that cluster. So yeah, I think taking the 37 is a good idea. If you don't, you're probably going to regret it later on in the match. Once you have the 37, you can just expand into so many different things. The 4, the 13, the 6, even the 14 and 26. I mean, there's really no good angles of attack here for either player, unless, say I was Pillowcase in this scenario. I could try if I was going for a quick rush here. I would go into perhaps the 13, 4, 6, and 14 here, as well as the 7 and 3, and then try to attack the opponent's 5. So if you try to overexpand too early, you could end up being too vulnerable on that side. But yeah, there are a ton of planets here to expand. I'm not sure if Philhassey can expand them all in time. He might only get maybe 3 or 4. I see Pillowcase taking 8 or 9 planets here before attacking. Let's see if he does. He takes those 2. He takes the 3. He's going for the 13. He's putting some pressure on Philhassey while he continues to expand. He's floating. Phil tries to match it. Good on Philhassey for actually expanding this time, very early. However, if Philhassey does not take the 37, he tries to take it. He misclicks by accidentally sending it the fleet to his home instead of attacking the 37. He realizes his mistake, but it's too late to take anything at this point. Yeah, he goes for the 26, but no. He tried to avoid the 37 after misclicking a miss there on it. He tried to avoid it because he knew that taking it at that stage was going to be disaster for him, so he didn't take it. And instead went for the giant 26, but against constant pressure from Pillow, that none of those strategies would have worked out for him. Those would have been massive overexpands. Wow, Pillow is just dominating. These skill levels are just too different for Philhassey to really get a good foothold here. If you paired Philhassey up with a lower tiered Elam player, I could see him having some success with how he's playing right now. But against a 2-stripe Admiral in an Eliminator, yeah, this match is turning out exactly how we all expected it would be. Going into possibly the last game of the set, game number 10. Here, the 5-planet cluster, the 12, 4, 1, 19, and 7 are all good here. Then going into the side 6. However, you do have to be wary of taking that 6, as the opponent could just rush by going into the 4, the 1, and the 7 into that 6. But yeah, let's see what happens here. Both players go for the 4, the 6. Pill takes that quad. He waits on the 19, opting to take it at some point in the future. Phil goes for it immediately, while Pill goes for early attack. And while Phil did have an expansion lead there, Phil was not ready for the level of aggression that Pillow was going to put on that left side. Pillow immediately punished Phil for taking that 19, when Phil should have been more ready to defend that side. You see the home planet and the 6 on the right-hand side of Phil's screen probably has a lot of ships still in it, if I had to wager. He could have used those ships effectively, but instead, he just keeps them sitting in their homes, which I don't agree with. I don't agree with that one bit. Phil should keep all his ships moving and utilized to the fullest extent. At this point, Phil has officially lost the game and lost the sets. Let's just play this out for formality's sake. Yeah, Phil loses the home. He's going to lose his final planet. Yeah, and good game to both players. I don't think this was much of a serious set, as it was an opportunity to play the developer and beat him in a set of Eliminator. This was fairly enjoyable to watch, though. I have to say, even more so to commentate. All right, with that, the set is finished and signing off.